Without safety, the nervous system has to develop a way of coping. That's why I love in EFT that we're not interested in getting her to drop it, but that we're interested in getting her to add another coping strategy. So when we talk about working below and behind the defenses, it's not for her to get rid of the inner critic, but she has the inner critic as a resource. It's been her best resource her whole life. And that's what I mean, that it's ensured her survival. Her inner critic has not let her guard down, because letting her guard down would be dangerous. So the inner critic became her best survival strategy. And that's so important for us who work with trauma, for us to recognize and validate and respect in our trauma survivor clients. And this is, developmental trauma. This is emotional neglect. It's subtle, but not unclear. It's subtle but potent. It's maybe more potent than people are saying. Developmental trauma, because it is so subtle and even silent, can be more potent. And the developmental trauma survivor reads the headlines and obviously knows people who had way worse trauma than them. So you can tell yourself, it wasn't that bad. It must have been me. I must have deserved it. I must not have been a good kid, a good person. And so developing the inner critic, I forget the name of the researcher who said the child will develop coping strategies to put the locus of control within themselves, because that's more tolerable, that's more bearable than thinking my caregivers aren't capable or don't love me. So she put the locus of control within herself and developed this brilliant, exquisite, sharp inner critic to ensure her survival. Don't let your guard down. Don't trust. The inner critic forced her to keep her guard up so she wouldn't be lured into thinking she was emotionally safe when she wasn't.
If I criticize myself enough before you can criticize me, I'm invulnerable. It's like a superpower, right?
I'm immune. The criticism from my caregivers stings less because I'll hurt myself worse.
Right. And that will save me.
That will save me.
And then it becomes a guard. Like it becomes that my husband can't get in. No one
That's
can
right.
get in.
Right. She's starting to wedge herself between her and the inner critic rather than just believing the inner critic is her. So we're developing flexibility in her relationship with her best survival strategy, which is this exquisitely sharp inner critic that has saved her life because it insisted she not let her guard down until there was safety. But then what happens with such a well-developed defense, we call them impermeable defenses. That's what Sue wrote in the Omega book of 2009. She doesn't know if there's safety because she can't even feel safety or not through that big, thick wall of defenses. So she can't even get a true sense of safety now.
It's a counterfeit sense of safety.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. A pseudo safety, a counterfeit sense of safety.
As a therapist, it's so tempting, I think, to try and rip that away. And you're saying, no, we have to validate it. We have to acknowledge it.
As a young clinician, I used to find myself power struggling with the person's inner critic and the person's defenses. And I was like, why do I expect this client to believe me, some outsider they just happen to stumble upon, believe me instead of their main survival strategy, which for better or for worse has gotten them where they are?
Yeah.
That's when Sue's book, reading that in 2009, no attempt to get rid of defenses. We tried to put little holes of porosity in what has been impermeable.
I like that so much.
Impermeable defenses become porous. Just a little crack.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about the inner critic as kind of a box or a cone or like a silo. And so by validating and reflecting, you start to break that cone of aloneness, of isolation.
Yeah, and that's my way of wedging. So the client gets a little bit of the start of externalizing because the client believes it is them, whatever their coping strategy is, the inner critic, the enemy voices, it's me. But that's when I know they're still caught in the echoes of the trauma because they believe it is them rather than an echo of what they endured.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Olden, and I wanted to let you know that the EFT Cafe doors open on October 17th, and they close on October 26th. So for more information and to register, go to www.theeftcafe.com. Can't wait to see you there. Bye-bye.